Okay, welcome everyone to our afternoon parent forum. We're so glad you could join us today. Before we begin, really just a few housekeeping items that we'd like to go over with you. Please know that this webinar is being recorded and will be shared via email with you tomorrow. Also, this presentation will last about 40 minutes or so, and then we'll save 20 minutes at the end for your questions. We have tried to answer many of the questions throughout this presentation that we've been seeing on social media. So as we near the end of the presentation, if you have unanswered questions, please put them in the chat on the right side of your screen. Okay, now that that is out of the way, welcome everyone. I'm Lanny Davis-Frecker. I'm President and CEO of Julie Billiart Schools. And today we will be talking about our strategies and options for a safe return to opening school. We're only 6 months into 2020, but it feels like it's been about 3 years. So we literally learn something new every day, every hour. And we want to thank you for continuing to trust us and to be patient with us as we plan for our opening in the fall. Please know that these are current plans as of today, but as you know, with this pandemic, things are changing rapidly, and we can expect that things would change. So we've been in great contact with the Cuyahoga County Board of Health. They've talked to us about things changing by the hour. And so please know that we are being flexible, we are being nimble. And as we learn more, if our plans change, we will absolutely communicate them to you. But we appreciate your patience and your trust. So to give you an idea of what we'll be discussing today, we're going to cover our guiding principles, review the 2 learning models for the fall, and we're going to take your questions and feedback from you. As a reminder to those who are just joining us, you can enter questions in the Q&A box on the right side of your screen, and we will try to answer as many questions as possible at the end of this presentation. So before we begin, I want to introduce you to our COVID-19 response team that you have been hearing about. This team has been meeting almost daily since April. We discuss and we plan the safest and most student-centered approach to our 2020-2021 school year. Input comes from parents, from faculty, from staff, community guidelines, health officials, and government recommendations and guidelines. Like I said, I'm Lanny Davis-Frecker, and I'm honored to bring this group together and help facilitate these discussions while taking feedback from all of our important audiences. We also have Jody Johnston, who is our J.B. Lyndhurst fantastic principal and has been helping us with all of our approach, and she will help us today with our Q&A portion of today's presentation.
Hi everyone, hope you're having a wonderful summer. We're glad we have a large attendance at today's meeting.
We also have Mr. Jason Weinich, who is our fantastic JB Akron principal, has also been helping with our Q&A at the end of today's discussion. Both Jason and Jody are former teachers and are parents. So they have helped us to make decisions that support not only our parents and our students, but also our faculty and staff.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to see everyone on here, and we look forward to helping you through this process this morning.
Judy Kreger is our Chief Financial Officer and has been instrumental in helping us find funding sources for PPE, for new positions, and she brings a critical financial and operational eye to the team.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today.
Ann Jared is our Director of Advancement and helps us find unique solutions to constant COVID-19 challenges.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today.
Samantha Evers is our newest member of the team. She will be our principal of the third school. And she is a former special ed teacher and is learning about our processes through this group.
Good morning, everyone. We appreciate you being with us today.
Michelle Skoletsky is our HR manager and helps us put in place new protocols for really our faculty and our staff.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being on the call today.
And last but not least, we have Sam Voschel, who is our director of marketing, and she has helped us create all of the beautiful surveys, emails, and communications that you have received to our parents, faculty, and staff. So a huge thank you to Samantha.
Hi, everyone. Nice to have you on today.
So a personal huge thank you to this group. They've been a joy to work with and navigate this very tough time. They love your kids, and I'm honored to work with them for the good of our mission. So through all of our discussions and plans, we have kept the guiding principles in mind that you see on your screen. I won't read these to you, but know that the health and the safety of our students, faculty, and staff truly does come first and will continue to come first through both of these learning options. We're also concerned with the quality of our education, the social and emotional health of our kids, and the operational viability of both of these options. Another slide that I won't read to you, but it gives you an idea of the stages of our planning. It's crazy to think that this all started about 5 months ago. In March, we were required to move into distance learning. We learned a lot from that experience. And since then, we've been meeting daily and surveying our parents to better understand how we can safely bring kids back and offer a stronger version of distance learning to families who need it in the future. That brings us to really our two learning options, which is the bulk of today's presentation. We're offering option one, which is an in-person 5-day-a-week model, and option two is a virtual education 5 days a week. We know that some public schools are offering a blended approach where kids are in the building some days and at home other days. We're not offering that for two reasons. One, in our parent survey, you overwhelmingly told us that approach would be that the approach there would be very difficult and hard for your schedules. And two, we simply don't have to. Because of our ratios, because of our numbers, and the ample space of our buildings, we can absolutely have all of the kids in the building while safely social distancing and following our protocols. Let's talk a little bit more about option one. Some of the considerations for this option are that most of our parents said they want to send their kids back to school. We're also hearing from the American Academy of Pediatrics that kids should return to school if at all possible. Again, we are able to accommodate this safe return and committed to meeting and exceeding, when possible, the CDC recommendations. If you look on the right, you will see different elements of option one. I won't go through all of these, but know that this option isn't much different from a regular school year in terms of what happens inside the classroom. The big differences are simply to keep your kids safe. We're requiring masks or facial shields for all of our faculty and staff and recommending them for kids in grades 3 through 8. Masks are recommended, but we completely understand that not every child can wear a mask. Our teachers will work to destigmatize the wearing or not wearing of masks so that all are accepted. And we ask for your understanding of some of the sensory needs of our kids as well to understand if they are or not wearing a mask. We're also sanitizing high touch areas every hour and every few hours and doing deep cleans of the buildings every night. One thing we do want to make clear is that if you select option one, but your child or someone you know is required to quarantine or contracts COVID-19, option 2 will become available to you. Otherwise, we expect families to stick with the option that they choose for at least 1 quarter. Some other expectations for option 1 are outlined on this slide. Again, you can read through this on your own time, but I do want to call attention to a few critical pieces here. Some parents have asked us how we will be grouping the kids during the school day. We're going to use both classrooms at all times, 2 for each grade level, and group kids in small cohorts of 10 or less. We will work to reduce any switching of classes and have teachers switch rooms rather than the kids. We will be grouping kids based on ability over anything else, like mask wearing, gender, etc., to stay in line with our educational model and meet the needs of our kids, because with our safety protocols, we know we can do this safely. Number 2, our faculty are already responsible for so much, not just educating our kids, but now also keeping them social distanced, wiping down surfaces, etc. So please be understanding and patient with them. Number 3, our administration is working to support faculty behind the scenes. One way we can do this is to create and monitor health and safety protocols. One of those is limiting visitors to the building. To keep everyone safe, especially during the fall, as we're seeing COVID cases increase, we will be suspending parent and visitor access to the building. Here are a few images of how we're able to meet social distancing guidelines in the classroom. In addition to this, we're staggering arrival and dismissal times, having lunch in the classroom, and putting in place one-way hallways and visual cues for social distancing. Option 2 really came about because we have a handful of parents who have extenuating health situations and circumstances and need to keep their kids home for the health and safety of people in their household. If you're interested in this option, please listen carefully as we review some of the considerations and expectations. Remember that we really want your kids back in the classroom. Research and regression data tells us that this is the best for our kids and the way that they learn. Virtual learning is temporary. At some point, we could consider making this a long-term option, but for right now, we're only able to offer it to current families for 1 quarter at a time. Because this virus and all of its implications change so quickly, we may only offer virtual learning through the fall or as long as the situation requires. We do think that virtual learning may be more successful for older students whose parents are able to make sure that they're logging on and who are available to help them with questions and assignments during the day. Just like our regular in-person education, we need parents to participate in their kids' education for it to be truly successful. Another point, option 2 is not the same as the spring distance learning option. Students will be watching webcam streams of what's going on in the classroom and will be expected to follow along. We've invested in a virtual learning specialist who will check in with the kids in the afternoon to make sure they're clear on assignments and getting what they need from virtual learning. However, our classroom teacher's main responsibility will be the students that are in the classroom. Lastly, if you select option 2, we ask that you remain in this option for at least the first quarter. You will not be able to switch to in-person learning until October at the earliest. Before choosing option 2, we ask that you review these parent and student expectations. Know that our faculty and staff will support you in either option. One of the expectations is that students follow a regular school schedule. They should be virtually present for a full school day. This slide and the next slide are a very high-level side-by-side comparison of our two options. The two things that I want to stress here are that the start date for both options is Tuesday, August 25th. And again, for both options, students must be available for all subjects during the school day. This allows us to reach the learning goals and expectations that make a JV education so unique. Another thing that I'd like to point out is that you will see that tuition is the same for both options because students are receiving the same amount of instruction, intervention, and therapy under both options. Before we get into our question and answer, I want to pause on a few of the frequently asked questions that we have received. This is not an extensive list, but we do want to respect your time today and not spend time answering questions that have already been answered in either the email you received or the frequently asked questions section of our website. For example, we've received quite a few questions about masks, and we recommend it, and we can help to accommodate and destigmatize masks if you choose to send one for your child. I will let you review these for a couple of minutes. And then if you still have questions, please add them to the Q&A right side of your screen. We will begin answering those questions in about 3 minutes. Some of you will see that the Q&A section might be located at the bottom of your screen and not on the right side. My apologies. Okay, at this time, I'm going to turn the presentation over to the Q&A portion, and our principals, Jason and Jody, will be reading your questions and then answering them. So if for some reason your question today is not answered, please email it to your specific principal directly. Any new questions that we receive will be added to the frequently asked questions document later today.
Okay, so right now there are 6 questions or 7 questions in the question and answer. So Jason and I will just kind of go through, answer the questions, and then if either one of us has something additional to add, we can go ahead and add that at that time. Again, as Lanny said, we will make sure that the questions are on the FAQ section so that if you need to look back for those, you can also find those at a later time. The first question is, can students have access to both teaching models, distance and in school? We are going to kind of assess and look at this on a quarter by quarter basis since things have been changing pretty regularly. Our ask is though that whatever you choose for this first quarter, it does have to be for the full quarter. There's staffing and other issues that kind of come into play for that. But if something happens and you are in school for the first quarter and you need to go virtual for the second quarter, you just need to make sure that you let us know prior to the end of the quarter and we'll work with you. Same for virtual coming into school. Those of you who are virtually learning, you still have your spot in the classroom. And so if you are virtual for the first quarter and choose to come back into the in-person building for the second quarter, again, we just ask that you let us know as soon as possible and we will make that adjustment, but it will be on a quarter to quarter basis. Jason, do you need to add anything for that?
No, I think that one covers it all. I'm going to go ahead and answer the next question I have on my screen. It states that since K-2 are smaller classes, will they be split or kept together? Across the board from kindergarten through 8th grade, one of the great things about our school is we are already a smaller environment in comparison to other schools. But to ensure the social distancing practices, we are going to continue to split our students up within each grade level. And so we are at the K-2 level, you will see a 6-to-1 ratio across the board throughout all academic parts of the day.
Okay. Next question is, how do you keep air circulating in the classroom that I see? Some of the classrooms have fans. We also plan on keeping the doors open and the windows open when the weather permits. So that should be enough to kind of circulate the air in the classroom during the school day. We also will be having the cleaning going on during the school day, so that will help with that also.
The next question we have is, what will the homework load for children doing virtual learning? So in regards to both homework as well as in-class instruction, whether your child is participating in school or via distance learning, the students are going to be responsible for completing the same number of tasks because everything that we do inside of our classrooms or through distance learning is tied directly to the standards that we are trying to teach and the curriculum that we are addressing. And so whether it is in-class assignments or homework, both groups of students are going to be responsible for the same level of work and the same number of tasks.
The next question I have is, will ability be based on last school year or will it be assessed at the beginning of the upcoming school year? This will be the same as we do every year. So the beginning of the school year, we do some reteaching and reassessments to determine where students are at. So we will continue to do that this year and then split the students for the small groups based on where they need to be for their ability.
The next question is, how will arrival and dismissal times be determined? And will parents that have to get to work be given consideration. Know that when we talk about staggering times, the start time is not going to be drastically different. Again, referencing the idea that we are already a small school to start with. We don't have a huge influx of students coming into our door at the same time. And so when we talk about staggering start times for students or arrival times, you can expect that that distance between two groups of students coming in is not going to be very great. We haven't completely nailed down all the logistics on the dismissal staggering process, but you can expect that it is going to be within the same the same time window of that 20-minute time span.
The next question is, how will sick symptoms versus COVID symptoms be identified and monitored? That does take a lot of the parent input as well. I know that we do have students that have allergies, and we have students with other health issues, and the symptoms are very similar to COVID symptoms. I would expect that you are monitoring the temperature and the symptoms that your child has, and if you feel that it may be something above and beyond sick symptoms and COVID symptoms, that you do bring that to your pediatrician or your doctor's notice. At school, we monitor the same way we will be monitoring when students come to school and they might not necessarily be feeling as well as the day goes on. So we do have a health aide that is here that will be working with the teachers to monitor the symptoms. We will be spot checking temperatures. We will be, asking the questions that we need to ask in regards to, if you've experienced any of the loss of taste or loss of smell. But some of the symptoms for COVID is very similar to cold and flu symptoms. So it is going to have to take both school and home working together for that. We just ask that if your child does have a temperature over 100 degrees, that you please keep them home, and that you please do not give them Tylenol or other fever-reducing medicine and then send them to school. They will need to be without a fever for 24 hours without any of those medicines.
The next one states that you are recommending masks for grades 3 and up. How will you ensure the child is wearing the mask throughout the day? And is this the responsibility of the student? Yes, absolutely. We certainly are recommending masks for grades 3 and up, but it does become student responsibility to be able to maintain and track that mask over the course of the school day. Our teachers and staff within the school are certainly going to be encouraging and supporting the students on reminders and whatnot to make sure that they have their mask on. But certainly we do hope, as we start to approach the upcoming school year, that our families are working with our students, with our JV students here, to start to get comfortable wearing that mask. We know that this is a completely new process for all of our students, and it sometimes can be an exhausting process for a child to get used and comfortable to a mask. So that's why we certainly hope that for our students that you are spending some time as we approach the school year to help the student gather an understanding of why the mask is important, why we need to continue to wear the mask throughout the course of the school day, and what some of the things that they need to do to remind themselves about their mask. We certainly understand that there's going to be a difference between our younger students and our older students who do come to school wearing a mask, and that the appropriate support would be provided.
Also, just to add to that one, we did send at the end of last school year, I think over the summer, social stories on wearing masks. So we can make sure that that's also available either through email or on the Facebook page, that you can go over that with your child. The next question that we have is, explain how recess and gym will look. So recess may look a little bit different, even though grades kind of typically go out at their own together. So it's K to 2, 3 to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it is smaller groups of students that go out for recess. Depending on the number of students, we may need to make that just one grade at a time instead of grade bands, but we will be looking into that as we kind of see how many students are going to be in the classroom and how many students are going to be virtual. Gym lessons as well as music and art will continue to be the small group that they have, or the homeroom group. It may look a little different in the sense that for art, they will not be sharing supplies, so there may be some specific things that they do not participate in because of the materials that it'll take. Music, we may not be using certain instruments for them to use during the class, and gym, it may not be using some of the equipment, but the classes will look the same and will focus on the same content and the same social aspect. It just will be that we do need to have a little bit of a change in the equipment or materials that are being used.
Another question, just to reiterate, the question is, will aftercare continue to be offered? Yes, aftercare will continue to be offered at both campuses. Please know that the social distancing procedures and protocols that we have in place throughout the course of the school day will continue to remain in effect for aftercare purposes as well.
And then next question, what is the detailed plan when a child, student, or staff tests positive for COVID? There should be more detailed response than the one on the screen. We do go ahead and follow the Cuyahoga County Board of Health's protocol. So our understanding as of today, we did have a conversation with the Board of Health earlier this week, is that if a child, student, or staff tests positive for COVID, we are requiring our staff to let us know if they have a positive test. We are also asking that the family of a student lets us know if they test positive. The Board of Health will contact that person who has had a positive test. They will talk with you to make sure that you are letting them know who you have come in contact with within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes. They may need to contact the school for contact information for those people. If it is a close contact, then the people that have been in close contact with that person that tests positive does need to quarantine for 14 days. So we're following those guidelines from the Board of Health. They'll be working with us. They will work with whoever is diagnosed. If someone does diagnose and test positive, they will work with you because they will reach out to you directly once the testing center has notified them that you have tested positive.
And what you would receive from us is a letter of just recognition that COVID has hit our campus, but will not be detailed so that we can make sure we are following HIPAA laws and regulations.
There's a couple questions here in regards to air filters and how air circulation will be handled within the classroom setting. So when we take a look at both of our campuses, both Lyndhurst and Akron, the facilities are a little bit different in terms of the mechanics of it. At the Akron campus, we have air units within each of the classrooms that do have individual filters that are maintained throughout the course of each week. During the winter months, the Akron building uses a boiler system. So it's a hot water boiler system. There is no additional air circulating into the building, into the classrooms from other parts of the building due to that boiler system. It is a heating system that doesn't require any forced air for it. And then over in the Lyndhurst campus, the Lyndhurst also uses a boiler system for their heating. And same thing, it's a hot water boiler system. And so it is taking the existing air within each classroom and warming it. At the Lyndhurst campus, they do utilize a central air unit system for a portion of the building, while other portions of the building do use individual convection units that are in the wall. And again, with those units, those also have air filters that are maintained during their use.
Next question, can an exception be made on the 2-week timeline to decide on which option can be made? I'd rather refer my daughter to do virtual learning, and if I return to work, it would be for 2 days, so it would be nice to have her in classes 2 days a week, home 1 day a week. Whatever option you choose, it would be a full-time option. So if you choose the in-person, it will be in-person for 5 days a week. If you choose virtual, it would be virtual for 5 days a week. We are asking that it be made by quarter. The reason we're doing that is we know that family situations may change. We also know that building situations may change. And so you can have virtual for the entire year, but we would just be checking each quarter to make sure that that is still the same expectation that you have. So if you're choosing virtual, it's for 5 days a week. If you're choosing in-person, it's for 5 days a week. But you can make that determination if you need to change each quarter.
The next question states that, will the intervention specialist be available to assist students with anxiety or regression that the change in routine learning style might bring? The answer to that is yes, but also at the same time, we are extremely mindful of the type of anxiety, but also regression that may have occurred due to not being in the school building, or what is to come here in the future as we continue to face this pandemic. Not only our intervention specialists, but also our other therapists and staff will be assisting in this process. We have a speech therapist who really focuses a lot on social emotional as well as pragmatic skills. And so certainly the intervention specialist and the speech therapist will be working together to identify students who may be struggling with that anxiety piece or with the regression, and devising a plan and providing the most appropriate supports and interventions to help bring that student back up to speed or lower those anxieties down. In addition to that, we also have our other therapists on staff, such as our art therapists. Again, when we talk about anxiety, we know that there's a great amount of change that comes with this pandemic, from simple things such as the new masks that many of us are now wearing, to the change of our schedule. We know that it's going to be bring big changes to that child's day. And so, and staff member like our art therapist will be able to continue to provide that one-on-one support that they typically do during the school year to help that student cope with whatever's going on and provide the appropriate supports to ensure that, that anxiety, the anxiety piece doesn't play a huge factor in their academic development.
The next set of questions is, if a teacher or staff member or student is tested and is positive, how do we handle that situation? We did answer that question previously, so we will make sure that it's in the frequently asked questions. It also talked about the adequate ventilation, which Jason had also answered. But the third part of the question was, how are you going to prevent parents from dropping their sick children off at school because they have to work? That's a situation that happens regardless if it's COVID or not COVID pandemic. We do ask our parents to make sure that the students are healthy, and healthy means that they are fever-free without any fever-reducing medicines for 24 hours. We do have a health aide here. The teachers will be pretty strict in looking at some symptoms that they may be seeing, or just knowing if a student is acting a little lethargic or not quite the way they typically act when they're in class. We will be sending them down to the clinic. If they are sent down to the clinic and they do have a fever, there will be a separate room that they will be with a faculty member until the parents can come and pick them up. And then we will ask that they do stay home until they are fever-free without any fever-reducing medicine.
Next question is, how likely is it that the virtual learning will be stopped after the first quarter? Quite a few districts are offering virtual learning until at least January. Offering it for only the first quarter seems to be a rather short time. Know that, when we look ahead here at this upcoming school year, we have put a protocol in place for families to select their option for 1 quarter at a time. Part of the reasoning that goes into this is we want to be able to, continue to evaluate our processes, evaluate our programming that goes into this. Obviously with everything that's going on, we know that we have to be prepared for the long haul of this pandemic, and we certainly will be. But as we look ahead, certainly we do envision that, yes, we're going to be prepared to continue this process as we head into the winter and possibly the spring months as well. But know that we have our parents select on a quarterly basis to allow us to continue to evaluate our programming to ensure we provide the best program possible for your child.
The next question is, how will before care and after care be handled? I know we talked about that we are going to do before care and after care. It will look a little bit different just depending on the numbers of students that we have, because we do want to have social distancing. So I know at the Lyndhurst campus, if the students kind of arrived at 7:45, they either went to the gym for the walking club or they went to the library for a quiet reading time. We may not be able to do that, so most likely we would have the students go directly to the classroom, and we would expect the teachers to come in early so that they're here when the students arrive into the classroom. Again, with aftercare, we do have 2 directors that are in aftercare at all times, so we will probably need to split up the groups based on the numbers of students that are participating in aftercare.
Our next question is, will there be a different dismissal time for bus kids and car line kids? As mentioned before, there will be a staggering process for arrivals and dismissals. That is a detail that we continue to work out for the start of the school year, and you can expect further information to come out regarding that.
Next question. My child is going into 4th grade. Will they be switching to see different teachers for different subject matter? We touched on this a little bit, but yes, we will have them switch. At Lyndhurst for 3rd and 4th grade, it's a little bit easier because there's 2 entrance or 2 doors, one for the entrance and one for the exit, but we will be working on kind of formal procedures as to how the students will change classes for language arts and math.
The next question is, can you provide the grading criteria for virtual learning? Will it differ from in-person learning? The answer to this, so yes, you have 2 different learning formats. You have a distance learning, you have an in-person. When we go to evaluate how our students are performing in both formats, there is a participation criteria. Now, when you look at what happens during in-school learning, there's already a participation component to that child's learning. We are going to tie that into virtual learning as well. The participation is going to be a very critical and important piece. As we go into virtual learning, into that option of virtual learning, you can expect that our students are going to have a very routine daily schedule that will follow a very similar school time schedule from 8 to 2:45 with live lessons and recorded lessons. There's going to be opportunities for students to view those lessons from a recorded standpoint at a later time if needed. But for our families choosing this option too, it's very important to know that it's going to, in order for the students to develop the most success in virtual learning, there is that component that that child does need to participate in that routine schedule. So in that home setting, the students need to be able to be set up for success. They need to be able to be a participant throughout the course of the daily structure that's provided.
And then again, a question if we can have more than 2 weeks to make the decision. We are asking that, we do have to be kind of cognizant of the deadline that we put in place, because there are expectations and plans and routines that we have to be able to come up with. That is also another reason why with the quarter to quarter, it is a shorter time frame for you to have that decision kind of impact your life. So we are asking that you make the decision based on the deadline, but know that it will be for that first quarter, and then you can reevaluate at the end of that first quarter if you need to make a change between virtual or in-person learning at that time.
The next question is, if Akron has boiler heat, how will there be adequate ventilation and circulation to have unmasked children who could be asymptomatic carriers in a room together? And again, you know, we are going to be setting ourselves up for taking the most cautious stance during this process. We're going to be following the Department of Health guidelines in terms of how we clearly evaluate our students as they come into the building throughout the course of the school day, as well as leaving school. Also, that evaluation process is also that communication with the parents as well, and what type of contact they have, you know, outside of school. And so, you know, it's very important to us that we stay in touch, in communication during this process to have a clear understanding of who's been in contact with who and what do we need to be prepared for.
Next question is, if we participate in virtual learning, will there be a way for the teacher to acknowledge the virtual learners by calling on them to participate and answer questions, or will the virtual learnings be more like observers? I think that may vary from class to class, but my thought process is that it will be more like they're observers. They will participate in the same way that the teacher or the rest of the students are participating, but there's not really a way for them to be able to ask the questions if they're unsure, which is of what's being taught, which is why we're having the virtual learning specialist who will be reaching out to those students to give some extra support and extra teaching. My understanding, at least based on what I think is going to happen, is that it will be more as if they're observing the class, still participating in that they'll be able to get the same questions or the same reteaching models, the same accommodations and interventions that the teachers are going to be using. But I think it would be very difficult for the teacher to have to pause and look to see if there were questions being asked via the chat. So it would probably be more observing than an active participation.
The next question says, will the students be able to take home their Chromebooks to support virtual and in-person learning models? The answer is yes. And you know, technology becomes a very key component to the virtual learning process. Each of our grade levels will be using a core platform that will be used as a communication tool, as well as an interface to provide the most appropriate resources, documents, tasks, and so forth to the students. So yes, the students are going to be expected to have their school Chromebook in the home setting to support that. In addition to that platform, a number of our curriculums use additional technology interfaces, such as the MyMath program that will be utilized for virtual learning as well. So absolutely.
There were a couple questions that were sent via email prior to the meeting, just to touch base on them. Some are very similar to what was being asked here. One was asked, though, for those of us who don't want our kids to be masked, is this policy subject to change? We always are strongly recommending, since that is what the Board of Health is recommending, that your child be masked. I do understand I have asthma and allergies, and so I know that sometimes the mask is very difficult to be in, especially kind of all day. But it is something that can also help with protecting them and others in the classroom. But we do understand that some of our students do have some special considerations that have to be made regarding the masks. So we will always strongly recommend that students in grades 3 through 8 wear a mask, but we do understand if they are unable to for various reasons. And again, we will work with the students to make sure you know, that we're understanding of everyone's decision and what that entails. It's very similar to other things that we do in regards to some of the social expectations that we have for students and some of the teaching that goes on a day-to-day basis anyhow.
There were a couple questions about bathrooms, one being how bathroom breaks will work and will bathrooms be cleaned after use. So with any bathroom breaks that the students take, students will be taking them one at a time. You know, in both campuses, students will not be going together as a group to use the restroom. They will all be individual uses. And then throughout the course of the school day, each bathroom will have a regular cleaning schedule throughout the course of the entire school day. Our plant manager at each campuses will be providing that assistance to do the appropriate sanitizing and cleaning routines that are set up periodically to happen throughout the course of the entire school day.
One of the questions that came up in the Q&A was, do you have a replay of the presentation so that you can rewatch and review some of the answers? We are recording the presentation, and so we will be able to email out that recording to everyone. We will also be working with Sam so that the questions that are showing up in the Q&A section, we'll group those together by topic to make sure that those are available as well. This is our first time using the Zoom webinar, so our hope is that when we save things, we are saving the Q&A and those are able to be viewed with you, but you will be able to have access to the presentation after today. And then there was a question about the chemicals that are used to disinfect the surfaces. We are using the cleaning solutions that are recommended by the CDC. So we have been able to purchase those and we are using those to disinfect the surfaces. In the classrooms, we've previously used Clorox wipes and other solutions. So we'll be continuing to use the same things that we've previously used, as well as the cleaning solutions that have been recommended by the CDC and the Cuyahoga County Board of Health.
Okay.
I think that's all. Oh, two other ones. What can we do to keep the teachers safe? I think we're everything that we do to keep the students safe are going to keep the teachers safe. I think the best way is if your student is not feeling well and you feel that it is above and beyond the simple cold, that you do, keep them home, because that will not only keep the students safe, but will also keep the teachers safe.
Okay. You have one more that came in or no?
The one, and I'm not, it says, please consider allowing the virtual students to interact or answer questions. That will be hard for the little ones. I think it's the difficult part, I think, with the virtual learning is that in order for the teachers to recognize that the student might have a question, is that they're going to have to kind of look at the screen to see if there's a question. So I think it may be a little bit difficult to have as much of an interaction between the virtual learners and the in-building learners with the teachers.
There's a question that came up here in regards to recess, asking what recess will look like, and also in terms of aftercare. Recess will continue to happen in our grade bands. We will be encouraging social distancing within our school, within the classroom setting, as well as the recess setting as well. We do know that our students do need that opportunity, that time to utilize recess to help develop the stamina and the endurance for the duration of the entire school day. And so it's going to be important that our students continue to have that opportunity throughout the course of each school day.
Okay. It looks like we are reaching a stop. So we want to make sure we quickly cover some next steps. Thank you so much for attending our presentation today. And here's really what's next for you. If your question wasn't answered, or if when you receive an email version of this presentation, if you still have concerns, please email directly your school principals. A recording of this will be emailed to you tomorrow. And please make your final selection by using the form that your principal sent via email on July 10th. Final selections are due no later than July 22nd, 2020. And prepare for a safe, productive school year. Please follow Julie Billiart Schools on social media and visit our website for any updates. As many of you know, Mike DeWine has called a conference today at 5:30. So we will all be tuning in to hear any updates that could affect us. And if and when we have changes, we will absolutely communicate them to you as soon as possible. So thank you so much. God bless you all, and please stay safe and healthy. Thank you.